Hi everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming to Flyleaf Books and supporting your local independent bookstore. Tonight we're all gathered to hear Michael Parker talk about his book, I Am the Light of This World. Michael is the author of 7 novels and 3 collections of stories, and since 2009 he has been on the faculty of the Warren Wilson Program for Writers. And fun fact, he lives in Austin, Texas. He's joined by Daniel Wallace, whose 7th book, This Isn't Going to End Well, The True Story of a Man I Thought I Knew, will be published by Algonquin Books in April 2023. And again, thank you for supporting us, and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
Well, we should say happy birthday to Flyleaf Books. Today is their 13th birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Flyleaf. Yeah,
Oh, it is on. No, I can hear you a little bit. Yes. I still can't hear you.
That sounds good.
Can you hear me?
I mean, I don't hear
Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me in the back? I don't think I need this. How are you doing? It's good to see you guys.
No, you
I don't need it. Do I need it? Can you hear me?
We'll see.
We don't care about technology.
Yeah. These are human voices.
Exactly.
So this is Michael Parker, if you're wondering who was who, because we didn't make that clear as we were being introduced. Daniel Wallace, Michael Parker. I'm going to start by asking you, you've been on tour for this book post-COVID, but tours were a little bit different years ago. Did you ever do those like FM early morning radio spots where you would go on and like on the Johnny and Ed show and do like a 5-minute back and forth?
I did a radio show once, but it wasn't in the morning.
It wasn't in the morning. But the morning is the worst radio show to be on.
Really? Because you're just waking up?
Well, no, they didn't read a word. They never read a word of your book.
Oh,
They just have the book.
I've been on that radio show.
They'll say something like, so, Michael Parker, you wrote a book. Tell us about it.
Is this a prep for what?
Yeah, and I was going to say, you wrote a book. Tell us about it. No, I don't want you to tell us about it, actually.
Please. That's hard.
The thing about, I don't want you to talk about the book too much.
Good.
Because when I read the book, I had no idea what it was going to be about. How often do we pick up anything and just start reading it without being in total mystery about what's going to happen? And it was really wonderfully surprising what happens in this book. I mean, it's like a freight train. It starts with this wonderfully, almost playful, light, humorous tone about the innocence of youth, and that changes dramatically as the book progresses. So I think we can talk about it in general terms without spoiling it for anyone. Just talk about how this book was written, because it does have this very intelligent progress to it, but I didn't know how that happened. Did it start like that, or did you just come to it later?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very instinctive writer who doesn't think too much about what I'm doing until after I do it. So, I mean, it was pretty much just throwing paint on the canvas and getting up every morning and just looking at what I'd done before and then just keep going. The funny thing about this book is that it started as a short story about this kid, Earl, and his 2 brothers who are twins, and they were all going to a 4-H camp in Central Texas. And that was just, it didn't work at all. And then somehow it turned into this book, because I cut, the brothers are there in the very beginning, and then they crop up later, I think in prison in Oklahoma or something. And that's the only, I mean, Earl was the only thing left from that story. No, I mean, there were very conscious decisions that I made at certain points, in the process of writing it. Like, for instance, I chose specifically not to write about the time that he spends in prison, because prison is so static and it's not of interest, really, to read about, to my mind. I mean, there have been really great prison books, obviously, going back to Count of Monte Cristo and before. But I didn't want to take that on. And last night, actually, I was talking to Jill, and she was saying something about how the cutting the middle out and, moving from one point to the other had a kind of almost physical effect on her, which I was like, oh, that's so smart. I'm going to claim it. I did that. I thought about that, but I did not. I mean, I just didn't want to write about prison. And I've never written a book in which a huge span of time passes between, I mean, my books have been fairly linear. I mean, there's certainly years pass when there's not much action. But I've never written a book with a hole in it like this. So, what you're trying to do at our age, I think we're the same age.
I think in my research about you,
I
discovered that.
Yeah. So at our age, we're trying to do something different that we've never done before. So yeah, that was how that started.
It was really smart. I honestly, when we got to the point where the prison scenes were going to happen, I stopped and I thought, what is he going to really be able to do with prison that hasn't already been done? And I thought that was such a smart move, because we can, I mean, in general, create the idea of what's going to happen there. It's not going to be experience, unless it's a really positive one. It's not going to be different from all the stories we've seen.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't for him a very positive experience. I mean, there is some backstory, like later in the novel, where I sort of look back and he remembers things. But I was very careful, or actually Kathy, we share the same editor, Kathy Portes at Algonquin, and Kathy was very careful to have those prison moments and memories triggered by something that happened on the outside, as they say, like in the present action. So that it wasn't just me throwing in 20 years ago when he was in prison on a Tuesday, So, and that part is very important. I mean, always that's important in any kind of fiction, is to have memory triggered by some present action, some event that's going on.
Yeah. So you mentioned your editor,
and yours,
and mine. How much a part does she play in your books? Because she's been your editor for,
so this is the
seventh book. So y'all are probably on first name basis.
only when we're working well together.
Well, I mean, there are too many books to go into all of the experiences of all of them, but it has been interesting over the years to see how she's going to respond to it, how deeply she edits, gets into it, the suggestions that she makes. Have you found it book to book to be different or the same?
Yeah, she's in Canada, so this is being filmed. Oh, we're not off the hook. I was gonna say, I mean, the thing that she does she does this to you too, but so I'll turn a book in, and I'll know that she's read it because some time passed, and she'll send me an email and says I've read it, and then, or no, she'll call me up, and we'll talk, and she'll talk about the Tar Heel game, she'll talk about the weather, she's talking about her running, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she keeps it. And finally she'll say, I read your book. And there's always this pause. And then she'll say, either I loved it, or, I loved it and it needs some work, or it needs some work, whether one of the three. But she's very honest, which I dearly love about her. And I used to think that if she said to do something, like if she suggested a change, then if I didn't do it for 2 times, like if I didn't do 2 times, and she kept asking me. Then by the third time, she would not notice it. But that's changed. As she's gotten older, she remembers everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the first book was If You Want Me to Stay, and that book really didn't. I mean, I did a lot of revision before I turned it into her, and so, and Shannon Ravenel read it, and she had some notes, and so the two of them sort of helped me. There was a kind of retrospective narrative that just didn't work, but she's a great line editor because I tend to go on. I mean, that's one of my, it's to my detriment. I just can't stop sometimes, and I get on this sort of lyric mode, and I just have to really cut myself off. But I don't cut myself off soon enough. So she's really good at pointing that out.
Yeah. I reckon she knows your brand pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, she's ready for me to switch it up, I think.
Well, it's obviously working out for you, working with her. Can you imagine ever, I mean, wouldn't it be weird to work with somebody else?
I wouldn't, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I need to have a second career lined up if she ever retires, because I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
I could work with Lynn.
There you go. Yeah, scan the audience to see if there's anybody else you want to work with. Yeah.
Just Lynn.
Yeah, just Lynn. That's something fun. So he does go to prison. Earl does go to prison. He gets out of prison. And there are a lot of other things that happen in this book, which just keep your fingers crossed that it's not autobiographical. I mean, you don't know, but you just pray that this is not something that he's drawing on his life experience.
This is not a question, is it?
There's a question coming up. Research. You're an instinctive writer, but did you do any research? Please, for this book?
About prison.
About, any of the aspects in the book. Or not. Prison or anything.
Yeah, there's always research. There's always things that you need to get right. Like the book takes place in the 70s and it jumps to 2018. So there are certain things that I got mixed up, like songs, for instance, when I wasn't quite sure. But I was extremely fortunate to have Chris Stamey, who was in the DBs and is a great musician. He was my copy editor, so I could really trust that he would school me if I got the lyrics to "She's Not There" by the Zombies wrong. He would know exactly what to say. But there was other research. Just in terms of in Texas, I don't think Texas is that different from the rest of the country in 1972 in terms of its penal system. But there were some things I had to look up, about how much time you would get for certain things. Like in 1972 in Texas, this musician Rocky Erickson was found with like half a joint in his half of like a roach in his, and he went to jail for 3 years for that. So it's always been, it's been geared to, like every like every state in this country, very much geared towards a huge amount of people in prison are black and brown. So I knew that. You don't have to do that much research in America to know that. But this kid's poor, he's white, he doesn't have any representation, he has a court-appointed lawyer. I have two brothers who are lawyers, so that was good. I could call them up and say, does this happen? Does this happen? Would this happen? And then they had to do research, because it's not like, they're not the kind of lawyers that, they're not criminal lawyers. And they weren't criminal lawyers in 1972 in Texas. And apparently laws change. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I think it's a very good thing that they do. Yeah.
So you made your brothers do the research. You didn't have to.
I highly suggest that whenever you have a sibling that can do the research for you, or a daughter who's good at archival work.
My sister's a lawyer,
Really?
Yeah, I should write something that has to do with law.
You should definitely.
Yeah, because she could do it for me.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to write it. You just like give her the notes.
Yeah, give her the general idea.
Yeah.
So you're kind of a Wikipedia researcher then. You just click on like when did the song come out?
Exactly. What did we do before Wikipedia?
I don't know. Maybe we had to work a lot harder.
I guess we worked a lot harder.
In the stacks in the library.
Yeah, I did do a lot of. My former mother-in-law, every year she gave me a reference book. That was what she gave me, and at the time I was like, really? But after a while I thought this is a treasure because it was like an encyclopedia of film, like encyclopedia of jazz, like Gazetteer, the North Carolina Gazetteer, which is one of my favorite books ever, because if you want to look up like where Frog Bottom actually is, it has it in there, and it has all these place names. And since so much of my work has been set in North Carolina, to know that, but just tons of reference books which I still have. And she was a great believer in doing your research.
Right.
Yeah.
This book is in Texas, as you mentioned, and you have been living in Texas. Which would be an explanation for why this book is set in Texas. But I've been living in North Carolina for, I don't hardly want to say, but I'm going to say about 40 years. I'm born in Alabama and lived there for 18 years. But I have not written almost anything that's taken place in North Carolina.
Really?
It's all taken place in Alabama because I feel like that's what I imprinted on.
Yeah.
Like a bird. But you haven't, do you feel that way at all? Do you feel like you can take the current experience that you have just like you could writing about your past here?
Well, I feel like I got so much out of Eastern North Carolina that, I don't know how many books can you write about a swamp? Apparently a lot. I had an agent, my first agent, that said, and she sent this, I don't know, it was buried on the bottom of an email, and I don't think I was supposed to see it, but you know how you could, when you first had email, you figured out you could go to the bottom of the chain and see what people were saying. And she said to my editor, "Give that boy a swamp and he can go to town." And that just encouraged me to keep writing about swamps.
Yeah. Positive reinforcement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are actually swamps in the part of Texas that I'm writing about. I mean, East Texas is not terribly different from Eastern North Carolina. I mean, it's more like Louisiana, but it's that part of it. I mean, parts of it sort of look like Merchant's Mill Pond up there, that northeastern part of the state.
Yeah. You also spent some time in Montana.
Yes.
Are you going to have that as a backdrop to anything?
I mean, I went to Wyoming in the last book, Prairie Fever, in Oklahoma, and then I went to Oregon. So I got to go. There's got to be some. I can't go to Canada. Yeah, so I got maybe Montana is next. Yeah.
What do you do in Montana?
What do I do?
What do you do besides ride? Is that it?
I used to ride my bike, but I messed my shoulder up. So no, not really anything.
You don't fly fish?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I wish I had the patience for it. But I often will watch my sister do it, and it's very instructive. Sometimes we'll go on a hike, but not that often. I just ride around, and then I go into town and go to the thrift shop. They have very good thrift shops in Montana.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I'll tell my wife that.
A lot of Carhartt.
So, yeah. So do you know Thomas McLean, I guess? Because he lives
we're buddies, yeah.
Are you really?
No, not at all. No, I mean, I know where he lives. He lives in the next valley over from my sister. I don't have a house where my sister lives.
Yeah.
But, I would love to run into him and just gawk, because I'm the kind of person that can't say to someone I really admire and respect,
Yeah.
"Hello, my name is Michael."
I'm a writer too.
Yeah, never that. I mean, I wouldn't know what to say to him, because he's been a sort of literary idol of mine for so long.
Yeah, and he's still writing so well.
Yeah, I just read the story in the New Yorker.
Yeah.
It was terrific.
Take half, leave half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Unbelievable. And he's older than we are, like by a lot.
How could that be?
I don't know. How could be? I mean, I've thought I was middle-aged for a number of years, but then I realized I'm going to live to 127. That's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't, you're past middle age. I hate to break it to you.
So this is your seventh novel, eighth novel.
I think it's my 8th.
Yeah, lost track, have you? Yeah.
Well, I'm not good at math.
Yeah.
That's why I was an English major.
You posted a really wonderful, evocative picture on Instagram a few weeks ago. A picture of you writing. Somebody took a picture of you writing on a typewriter with a landline right there. And it's just the perfect picture of the young writer just jumping into his craft. Did anybody see that? It's a really beautiful picture. You should go look at it. So at that time, in order just to go from not being a writer to being a writer, there are a lot of walls you either have to go through or around or over, and you have to be ambitious. You really have to want it. How has that ambition or the idea of ambition changed from then to now, and what are you ambitious for now?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, you could say ambition, or you could just say stubborn. They're kind of, they go hand in hand. I think I once lusted after fame, glory, and money, but now I just want to make a really beautiful sentence. But I just don't want to make a beautiful sentence. I want the sentence to be the thing that it needs to be at that time in the narrative. I mean, I would just like to write the best book I can, and if people like it, I will be so pleased. And and if people give up a little bit of time to come out and hear me read, I'm just thrilled. That's the thing I really am interested in. The rest of it, I think, to quote the Isley Brothers, it ain't nothing but show business. And the show business part of it's not that interesting to me anymore.
What is the show business? Is this?
This is not the show business.
This is not the show business.
No, I mean, it's sort of endless, talking about agents and editors and publishers, and just that emphasis on the business end of it. Not like we're doing it out of respect to the craft. But we're bragging about advances and talking about just the au courant person of the month.
Right. Yeah, I don't really read the book review that much anymore.
I hadn't read it in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be. I was just so focused on it when I was younger and coming up. I would just read every page and see what everybody was doing
you should
better.
Get it early. You could get it early on Tuesdays.
Go down and absolutely.
Yeah.
And if the Bull's Head at the Bull's Head.
Yeah, I worked at the Bull's Head.
Yeah, they had.
I only worked there so I could get the New York Times book review early. No, that was a great bookstore, actually.
Yeah, and Erica works here occasionally.
I do know that, and Erica, she hired me, and she also hired my daughter.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that might make her feel old, so don't bring that up to her.
Is your daughter here?
She actually is, yes.
Right.
She doesn't like it.
So when you got the Thomas Wolfe, you had your daughter. She give you the medal. Remember, you had to do it on Zoom.
No, actually, that was one of your students. She gave me the medal.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should remember this.
I should remember that. Anyway, moving on. I do feel, and you might be a different sort of writer, but I feel that no matter what we're writing, some part of us, who we are, our history, our character, the things that we find interesting are in the book, even if there isn't anybody in the book that you would ever say, oh, this is obviously Michael. Who are you? What is your obsession or your passion or the part of you that's in this book?
So there's two aspects of Earl that are definitely autobiographical, and one is the music and the emphasis. He's he's obsessed with music, as I was when I was a kid and still am, and felt like it was sort of my avenue out of the town where I lived, which has given me so much, and I didn't realize that at the time. And the other thing is swimming. I mean, in a way, it's just a book about a guy who wants to swim. He really wants to learn how to swim, and swimming is just, I don't know. I just, if I couldn't swim, I don't know what I would do. It just drives me crazy not to be able to swim.
Did your shoulder make it problematic?
Yeah, because I couldn't really swim for a year. I was a real
in circles.
Yeah. No, I mean I couldn't. I could not get in the water at all.
Because
I would, if I got in the water, I would try to swim laps. You know,
right.
I couldn't just soak in the water. I'm not like someone who's just going to stand in the water.
Yeah.
No, swimming is just so. I mean, it fits so well with writing to me because you work in the morning and then you go over and swim and then I come back and work a little bit longer. And I think I actually do sort of think, but on a very subconscious level about my work, and it's not like, oh, when I do this flip turn, then I'm going to think about that next scene. It's more like just things coalesce, and it's not conscious, and so those aspects of it. But there's something in each character that is me. For it to be able to work, there has to be some aspect of your character. You're not your character, but your spirit, your emotional life, for the character to be interesting. And sometimes I'll read a book and I'll think there's nothing of the author in this character, therefore the character is not interesting. They haven't brought them to life in a way that's vital and that's memorable. So I'm very conscious of that.
Yeah. You went to UNC.
I did.
Yeah, and studied writing here, and lived here for quite some time.
I did, yes.
Coming back to it, I know you have a number of times, but you've seen it change, as many of us have here, over the decades. What does it feel like coming back here to the town, the way what it's turned into? Well, I feel like Chapel Hill. I mean, you guys live here, so you can tell me if I'm wrong. But the one thing that's sort of preserving it is the fact that it's fairly contained, right? I mean, it's not like Austin where it just spreads for miles. I mean, there's Durham over there, and there's Carrboro here, so it could sort of spill over, but and it is kind of seems to me, just from driving up from McIntyre, spilling out into Chatham and northern Chatham. But the changes are huge in the condo. But I mean, I don't want to be that person that just complains about Austin all the time, but really Austin is sort of the poster that
child.
guy.
I am that guy. But it is the poster child for uncontrolled growth, really. And it has become, and since the pandemic especially, I mean, the condo, just the skyline has changed. I swim outdoors in this pool that's 1/8 of a mile long, so it's you start at the shallow end and you swim towards the deep end. And when I first started swimming there was one skyscraper, and now the whole sky is filled with condo towers and business towers, and so compared to Austin, no, I don't see it really. But I can definitely tell so much new construction. Yeah.
Well, we do have I can't say the word rural buffer around. In Orange County, so there is a limit to how far it can explode outward.
Really, I'm in favor of rural buffers. That's a great term,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you say it 3 times real fast? Would you ever? It's a crazy question, but would you ever consider moving back here? Insane. That just came to me. I don't know why.
My house is on the market. I'm just waiting for someone to pay me $50,000 over asking. As soon as that happens, I'm out.
Isn't that probably going to happen though? I mean,
it's kind of the market cooled off a little bit. Yeah, so maybe 30 over asking.
So once that happens, boom. Yeah.
I got to get out of
You
there.
got to get out because you don't own a house anymore. That's how
Right.
that works.
Unless they'll let me stay as a tenant. But it's a 1-bedroom. So I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Well, I mean, judging from some of the scenes in your book, I don't think it matters.
I thought we were going to stay out of the weeds.
No, I had, I still teach. I'm not retired. Like you are. I can't believe it.
I think I started before you. Maybe I started.
You started before me, yeah.
There you go.
But I had a student in my advanced class who wrote the story was really not problematic, but really fiery scenes. It's kind of a sex cannibalism kind of thing that's going on. I know, but he made it work.
You get used to it if you teach undergrad. It's a whole subgenre.
Yeah. And I always have them read a portion of their story when we're talking about it in class, and I say read this. I always assign the section that I want them to read, and I picked the most sexy cannibalistic part of it because I know that he had never heard what that sounds like, actually sounds like, and he was just turning bright red. It was really hard for him to read it, and that was, I think, very instructive.
Yeah.
You know,
Did he change it? Did he revise it?
I think he did some more research on cannibalism and got it right. Like time, but no, he doesn't. He really is turning that into a genre.
Yeah.
Trying to.
Yeah, you just made me really glad that I've retired.
We don't have to keep talking about him, but it was actually quite one of the best stories that I've read this semester. Yeah, but those scenes that are just on fire and something that's hard. It's hard to read, but it's so beautifully done in your book. Some of the scenes that I'm thinking of, and I know probably know what I'm talking about. Not the underwater swimming scenes, but other ones.
Yeah.
Are those hard to read for you? How does it feel now to do that? Have you
Well,
ever
I
read
don't
them?
read them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Once it's done, I mean, I would never read that scene aloud at a reading for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I've read it since Kathy and I did the edits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the whole thing about going over and over in the process of revision is it does kind of desensitize you a little bit.
Oh yeah.
From the power of it in a way, and it's just sentences that are meant to. But I mean, I remember writing it thinking, I mean, I don't know if I should be doing this, and also I have to do this.
Right. Yes,
It
it's
just
really
seems
important.
it's inevitable based on what I had started,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that inevitability is really important to me,
Mm-hmm.
because the scene that most writers leave out is the hardest scene to write. Especially when I was teaching, there was always, you get right up to that point where something really dramatic has to happen. And most writers, and I'm not just talking about undergraduates, I'm talking about all of us, don't want to write that scene because because it's so hard to write without being melodramatic or sentimental or over the top. But the key is don't be sentimental, don't go over the top.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really difficult to do that. So you just write the scene and do all those things,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just cut it back.
Mm-hmm.
So that scene was, I had to cut it back.
Yeah, but based on what you as a writer felt, or through the editorial process?
I mean, based on what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and also once the publisher read it, there's a little bit of back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm so glad it's
Thank
in
you.
there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't work if the guy was caught jaywalking. I don't think. It'd be very different.
No, it would be a much different book.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to take your characters to a really dark place to get them out of it. at some point. Or
Yeah, I mean, there's so much lightness in his character, though, too. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's his capacity for wonder and his love of mystery, and his ability to be surprised by something. I mean, he spent 40 years in prison, and what are you gonna? I mean, how are you gonna negotiate the world? A, but B, it's not just learning how to use a computer or Facebook. It's figuring out how to be interested in things and have hope. And that's something that I wasn't like conscious of that. That's who he is. That's who the guy is. So I just had to let him be who he was.
Yeah.
And also, of course, control it. I mean, I'm
Right.
pulling the strings, right?
Right. Well, I want to hear about what you guys want to hear about. I would love to for you to ask Michael a question.
Or can we, before we do that, can you just tell us a little bit about your new book?
Yeah, it's coming out in April from Algonquin. Kathy is the editor, and she did an amazing job on it. She actually was very vital in the construction of this book. It's a memoir, and it's sort of a memoir, but it's true. And at any rate, I had a lot of material to sift through, and so it was very difficult to arrange it all, to get the story and get it right. But it's about my brother-in-law, William Neely, who actually lived here. Do you know him?
No.
Yeah, and he killed himself in 2001. And so the book really is about his effect on me as a person and his influence on me as a writer, and what also about the nature of suicide and what that does to people, to a family. So yeah, it's been in the works for a really long time. I think every book has taken longer. You'd think that it would get easier, but for me, it's like the first book took 2 years, and the second one took 2.5, and then 3.5, and this one I think took almost 5 years. So I just don't want people, I want them to miss me.
I want a good career strategy.
Yeah, good career strategy. Right?
I could do more of that.
They're having breakfast, they're drinking their coffee, and they go, I wonder what Daniel Wallace is up to. No, actually, that never happens. Nobody cares if I never wrote another book, or any writer ever wrote another book, nobody would care.
I think one should suppose that. It's a good place to start. Yeah, but no one's out there hungering for your work. I mean, if you don't think that, then you're bound to write something that's not very interesting, right?
So, you can pre-order my book. Michael wanted me to mention all this stuff, but go online, pre-order the book, blah, blah, blah.
And then when will it be out?
I think the 11th of April.
Oh, wow.
What?
So then I'll be in conversation with Daniel.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't asked me, but...
Change chairs.
Right, yeah. We're going to switch chairs.
Yeah. Yeah, if you read it.
Oh, I'm going to. I have a copy already. I got it right before I got on the plane.
Well, somebody.
Well, I want to hear him read something.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that thing that they do, sometimes.
That's what you're supposed to do at readings. That's why they call it a reading.
Yeah, I guess.
We're trying to get away without doing that. I do have a copy.
Well, I've got one if you need it.
I'm going to read, let's see. I had a passage that I was reading about. Do you want to hear about swimming?
Sure.
Sure.
Whatever.
Okay. I have to find it. Or maybe it's about music. Swimming, music.
Isn't there some passage where music and swimming happen at the same time?
Yeah, maybe so. He hears stuff under the water. Oh, no, yeah, I'll read this, but I need my glasses. And so Earl he's 17 in 1974, and his father is pretty much out of the picture. but he comes around sometimes, and because he's out of the picture, he's very important, right, in his life because he never sees it. So
Can you speak up just a little?
Yeah, I mean, I can use a mic if you want me to.
I'm not going over there, just a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks.
All right, yeah, and also if I tend to go low, so then just you go high. All right. Earl's father once took him on a walk through the woods to a pond where he taught him the words to "I'm so lonesome I could cry." Even when his father disappeared for weeks, Earl had his transistor radio, on which his father claimed to have listened to stations out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Matamoros, Mexico, when he was a boy in his bed at night. Was there anything in the world more romantic than listening to radio stations from other countries illicitly after lights out? Yes, there sure was, and Earl came one day to hear it on some old 45 of his father's. Earl couldn't even remember who was singing or about what. He just remembered lying on the floor watching the warped vinyl hiccup, and here came an ample solo of what he would learn was pure pedal steel. Earl felt draped by a blanket and shocked by a cattle prod. The pedal steel both softened and sharpened. Say you were a river, say there was no wind. Still river equaled words set to music written out flat on a page. Now add pedal steel. Wing it in on a westerly breeze. Hear the plaintive shiver of leaves through trees lining the bank. Pedal steel could turn a song into what? Earl didn't know. Your heart struggling to stay in rhythm and burst out of you at the same time? Trying to define it made Earl feel foolish, and that is how he knew it was true. He would die trying, and that is how he knew it was true. So that's that he loves pedal steel because I love pedal steel. And it was, it's one of those instruments that's just like, first of all, it's really, really hard to play. And I didn't even realize until I'd been listening to it for years that you play it with your knees, that a lot of it is done with the knees. Like you have the actual, guitar strings that you're playing, but you also modulate that. Is that the word modulate? Yeah, mess around with it with your knees.
Let's say it is.
Yeah, modulate.
Yeah, I think so. Do you feel like it's not used as much anymore? It seems like it used to be. Maybe it was the music I listened to, but
well, it's used in Texas.
Oh, I guess so.
It's hard to walk down the street in Texas and not hear.
Oh, really?
Steel. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard to leave. Maybe we can hire some pedal steel players.
Yeah, we'll
Bring
make that
it with
happen.
me. Yeah.
We'll make it
For
happen.
your reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he just falls in love with that music and with music in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of it is this sort of stuff in the 70s that we all some of us grew up listening to. So there's maybe 40 songs in the book or a little more, and there's just something called Large Hearted Boy. Do you know that, the playlist?
Mm-hmm.
They ask writers to compose like playlists for their books, and so I had to choose from 40 and had to whittle it down. And then I showed it to Kathy, and she kept cutting, cutting, and then I kept putting them back in. But yeah, it was fun to write about how the songs worked in the context of the novel.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fun.
Did you put them on Spotify?
I don't know how to do that.
Because it says on the book that you did already.
You did?
Yeah. Let me move your glasses.
Are you joking now?
No.
I can never tell.
So in the far, they
I can never
say
tell with him.
this is in the front of the galley, and it says all the things that he's going to do to promote the book, and it says Spotify playlist and genre targeted advertising.
Whoa!
Wow.
And I actually looked for the Spotify list, and it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, no kidding.
You didn't know about that?
I don't read this. That's not for me. That's what I'm supposed to do. Somebody else is supposed to tell me to do it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
never did. I mean, I have musician friends who are anti-Spotify, so I've listened.
Oh, really?
Yeah. because they don't get money from it. They don't get enough money from it. So I've always been hands off, and also I listen to records.
Yeah, but it would be great to have. I feel like every book should have a soundtrack that you can listen to. It would be great in the book to be able to like push a little button on page 33 and hear Heard It Through the Grapevine or whatever.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And
I
have
mean,
a
I would have to
montage.
get someone else to set it up for me. I wrote a book called If You Want Me to Stay, which is about these white kids who are in love with soul music, and I made CDs
Mhm.
and gave the CDs out, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this would be a great one.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good idea. I have to.
It was not my idea. It was your publisher's
Yeah.
idea. Which you obviously haven't followed through on. Do you want to read that list to see if there's anything else you screwed
It
up?
says you get $500 every time you speak in public.
Oh, yeah. Just get it from the cash register.
Yeah, it's their anniversary, birthday, whatever.
More questions?
Was the Fort Wayne radio station WOWO?
It indeed was.
Wow.
Whoa.
I grew up in Sanford and I listened to Cousin Brucey and
Uh-huh.
WOWO. You know,
That's
so
right,
that,
for
that
sure.
really resonates with me.
Well, couldn't you not only could you? That was a weird construction. Could you only not? Could you get it at a certain time of
Late
night?
at night.
I think so. It was sort of late.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Like when your parents went to bed.
Yeah.
I would get my radio tuned to it so that it would come into the room.
Very
But I
smart.
shared with my sister, and it really bothered her.
The only other one I can remember is WLS out of Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
KBKA.
cousin Brucey, Wolfman Jazz,
Yeah, Wolfman
and
Jack.
then WBT, where Buick travels, that would come in Virginia.
Where? Oh, that was in Virginia.
Where Buick travels.
Right, I think that's what it stands for, WBT, where Buick travels.
I mean, I loved the FM radio when it came in. It was sort of like the internet. If you lived in a small town,
It was fabulous.
It was amazing.
You were connected to something.
But then it's the whole mystery of having these like three huge stations that had all this power and that we all have in common went away. Of course, we started listening to WQDR out of Raleigh.
Yeah.
But they
Well, the
seem-
FCC changed all the rules. That's why all that
Oh.
happened. They
Oh,
changed
really?
all that at the same time.
That's
Uh-huh.
The
interesting.
AM, so the big stations were what they call clear channel,
Mhm.
and stations like, this might be sort of making it up, but WKIX, for example, had to cut back their power at night, and so the big stations owned the right to play a clear channel on their part of the spectrum, and that's why you could hear them. And when FM came in, all that was scrambled and changed by the FCC, and I can't explain that part,
Yeah.
but that's why that happened.
Well, that makes sense because we would get in huge fights when we went anywhere because all the kids wanted to listen to WKIX, which always seemed to be playing Kicks by Paul Revere and the Raiders, and my parents wanted to listen to WPTF, which we made fun of by calling it whoop. They play classical, right? Or you weren't here then? They play classical music, right?
No,
Yeah,
WPTF did. Yeah.
it was mostly talk and farm shows and
Oh, well then.
ball games.
I mean,
the
I'm all
Wolfpack
about
Sports
some
Network.
farm shows.
Yeah, it was the Wolfpack Sports Network and the farm shows.
Well, I think they had classical music at some point, but I would have been all over. You know, the other thing I loved was Ask Your Neighbor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was on
Do
there.
y'all remember
Bart.
that?
Bart.
Mario Dell, Bart Rittner.
Yeah.
What
so
would
that
you
was
ask?
what?
What would you ask your neighbor?
Someone would call up and say, I have a combine and it's missing a wheel, but you can have it if you want. And then somebody would call in and say, well, I'll give you this much. I mean, it was like a swap meet on air. My father was addicted to it, so whenever we ride anywhere for him, when he was like, and then at first I hated it, and then I was like, that's a pretty good price for that combine. You didn't have that in Alabama?
No, I'm sure it was there. I just wasn't plugged in.
Yeah, right. Little, you went high, we
Oh,
went
oh,
low.
yeah. There's a radio station in Hillsboro, WHUP.
Somebody was telling me about
Yeah,
it.
that's good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an indie sort of thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of local stuff too. It's really nice.
sweet. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be there a lot if you ever come back. Yeah. Well, why aren't y'all asking a question? Because is it because you know? Oh, okay. Is it because you already know everything about Michael? Pretty much.
We might be out of time. Are we out of time?
No, she's just giving some fingers.
Michael, do you swim in the ocean or just in lakes?
Oh,
Good question.
I will swim in the ocean, but not like at Topsail Beach. You know, but and like I went to Greece and all I did was swim.
Yeah.
Way too much. That's why I had to have surgery on my
Really?
shoulder. Yeah, I blew it out. No, there's a place called Barton Springs in Austin, and it's an eighth of a mile long, and you swim up and down 4 times a mile. But it's a pool, but it's also, and it's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Because he can never figure out if it's a pool or a pond because there's fish in it and there's turtles, and I swim there early in the morning when the sun. I'm there in the dark, and then the sun comes up and. You see the turtles. It's transcendent. It's the greatest way to start a day. It's 68 degrees year round, so when it's 105, it's terrific. When I get back, I'll be like in the 50s, so I'll wear a wetsuit. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're dedicated.
Totally. Hardcore.
Do you ever swim in Lady Bird Lake?
Well, I mean, if I had, I wouldn't be sitting here. It's like super toxic. I mean, they're Buicks. Somebody mentioned Buicks. There's Buicks at the bottom of that lake. Yeah. So,
How'd they get there?
a flood. A flood took them.
Oh.
I'm making that up. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. Like there was a flood. I mean, so it doesn't really rain in Texas, but when it does, it really, really rains. And because it's a limestone, it does. There's nowhere for it to go. So there was this huge flood on Memorial Day, and there were like dumpsters coming down Lamar Avenue, like into the river.
No.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to swim there. Bless you. That's why I would never ever swim there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good solution.
Yeah.
What was that place we went swimming in Texas with the fish
So-
in it?
Alabama.
Yeah.
That's why she's here.
You have her album?
I do. I stole all my siblings' records because they no longer have record players. So it seemed to be like, why would they keep them? If you get a record player, I'll bring you back all your records. Except for Quadrophenia by the
And another one.
I'm keeping that, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody who's taken something from somebody else negotiate for the return of them. Like,
You mean
Yeah,
at a
I met
reading?
my sister.
at a reading.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting.
I'll see to it that you get your records back. But do get a record player. Yeah. Is there one that you particularly miss or you think about when you think
Well, they
about?
all had Parker written on them, and he came along and went, Michael. Or walked off.
I mean, one could argue that you should have put Stuart Parker on there.
You didn't need to at the time.
Yeah.
We'll take this offline.
Yeah, DM him. Yeah. All right, quiet bunch of people. If that's
Well, he
it,
could read some more. Like he could read another
you'd
paragraph.
really
I
like
thought
to
that
hear
was-
him read, right?
That was kind of stingy. I
That was
thought.
nice. All right, do another little
Just do
reading,
another
and then we'll
few
go.
paragraphs.
Wait, somebody's playing some music. The pedal steel. Let's just listen to that. I'll just read the first couple paragraphs.
Oh wait,
I
yeah.
just want to say this is one of the best books I've ever read. I
Thank you
absolutely
so
love
much.
this book. I bought copies and gave it to friends and relatives. And
Oh my
I
gosh.
just loved it.
Thank you so much.
Sequel, Prairie Fever.
It's
Maybe I
great.
should read from it.
Funny.
No, don't. Just read from the beginning.
I'm going to read the first couple paragraphs. If I can find my glasses. Do I need the mic? Can you hear me now? Okay. Because Earl's clothes were line dried, they smelled of sun, grass, earth. But the girls on the bus said he smelled like creek mud. The girls were even meaner in the winter when he wore parkas donated by the Kiwanis Club Coats for Kids drive. Easily recognized by the fake fur collars which reeked of the kerosene used to heat their house. At home, his family treated him like a second cousin much removed. "Oh, look, Earl," they'd say, after he'd been sitting quietly in a room for a half hour. He was 17 and did not mind being unseen, but he knew he was creek mud to them too, and so he refused their offer of a snack of celery filled with peanut butter and dotted with raisins because, seriously, ants on a log? Into the smoke from neighbors burning their trash in rusty barrels slipped Earl, on the lookout for someone to whom he might define himself. But he always ended up in the woods, listening to the transistor radio his father had given him, or reading aloud from the biography of Leadbelly he carried with him always. That is a very autobiographical thing, because I had this biography of Leadbelly, which I read over and over and over and over.
Wow.
I don't know why.
When you were growing up?
Yeah, when I was like 11 or 12.
That's
maybe
wild.
younger, maybe 8 or 9. Yeah, he's an unlikely role model, really.
Not the first person I would think. You know?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Really
know.
derivative of Leadbelly. Yeah.
Exactly right, yeah. I don't exactly know why, but, I mean, because they had it on the shelf. It was. That's the problem with books. They have them on the shelf, I'm probably going to read it. Yeah, so, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming out. I guess we're done with this. You always forget.
You get to take it with you actually. It's party time.
They're 13.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. You enjoyed it? Is it better than like Joe?
Oh, wait.
That's right. Oh, that'd be great to get hot mic.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I just love hearing you talk. I love the mix of despair and cheer. Shaking together.
Right there.
Well, I know.